today, which is a panel on the Super Bowl of humorous ads. And we have an intro and the content chair, and I'll be the format chair. Patrice.
Sounds great. Okay. So Super Bowl 59, which was just a week ago, drew in 127.7 million viewers, which is a record for the biggest audience in the United States. Super Bowl ads went for $8 million for a 30-second commercial. What was interesting is 85% of the ads this year had some sort of humor or comic element to them. So that's an increase of about 10% from last year. I'd like to introduce my media effects class, and I'm very grateful to Sal Kiki for the opportunity for the graduate students to present. I'm trying to cultivate new humor scholars. Because we're the College of Communication, the Super Bowl ads seemed like a great fit. In class, we covered, of course, all the traditional humor theories, the incongruity theory, superiority and relief theory. So that'll be smattered in and out of the presentations today. When it comes to humor in advertising, research has shown that it does increase attention. There are some plus and minuses in terms of memorable, recall aspects of it. Particularly, I think brand likability is associated with humorous ads on the Super Bowl. I think that's why they spend so much money, is again on the ad appeal. On the negative side, humor can be distracting. It can interfere with comprehension, particularly during the Super Bowl. It's 30-second spots. People are eating, drinking, watching the game, and so there's some disruption in that sense. And so it's really become part of the entertainment is the commercials along with the game. Something like 20% of people claim they only watch for the commercials and not for the game. Okay. Humor is for us a peripheral cue, that it has a short-term effect. People have little time to process, especially if it's on television, and little motivation because again they're watching the game. It's best used for low involvement products such as beer, snacks, drinks, and so you'll see a lot of those aspects. Okay, so now just to introduce the panel, we focused on 3 different trends. One is the targeting of gender, and Mia will start us off. The use of celebrities, Carolina, and then a rather usual combination for humor is insurance companies, and that'll be Anushka. And so I will let Kiki take over as the official chair position. Thank you.
All right, so we're ready for the first paper. We only lost 3 minutes that we can easily catch up on in the discussions. So Mia, it seems to be you.
Yes, I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Here it comes.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Mia Galante. Sorry, this. Okay. My name is Mia Galante, and I will be presenting the Title IX of Ads, Gender Representation in Humorous Super Bowl Ads on behalf of myself, B. Alma Geyer, Janike Calloway, and Reagan Ezekiel. So just for some background context, we'll be primarily focusing on the representation of women in humorous advertisements and how a lot of these traditional gender stereotypes that are seen in these ads can have a negative impact on confidence, on self-perception, and body image. And then there's also this concept of femvertising, which shows how advertising centered on women can show women in ads in a positive light, can be used for a more empowering tone, which we'll see this used in the 2025 ad that we chose to highlight. And this really shows the need for accurate representation of women in advertisements so we can be more empowered and also show that humor doesn't have to be degrading, it can be empowering to women. Just for a quick literature review, this is a 2008 study that looked at the prejudice release function of sexist humor, and this was from 2008. And this primarily showed how jokes at the expense of women in comedy promotes sexism in male audiences and can strengthen prejudice against women. And if male audiences already hold a hostile attitude towards women, these types of ads that have sexist humor, or sexist humor in general, can promote this discriminatory behavior and deem it socially acceptable. And this is just a quick little quote from this study that says, in this climate, tolerant of derision, sexist behavior can be more easily justified as falling within the bounds of social acceptability. So especially in the Super Bowl, which is such a huge event in pop culture, seeing sexist humor in these ads can really reinforce that behavior is acceptable. And especially since sports are often stereotypically associated with more male audiences, that can kind of show what kind of behaviors they want to reinforce with these types of humorous ads. So the first ad that we would like to share with you is from 1973. This is for Noxema with Farrah Fawcett. I will play this.
I'm so excited. I'm gonna get cream.
Dave, the more you need creamy, soothing, medicated Noxema. Let Noxema.
You've got a great pair of hands.
And so that ad featured Farrah Fawcett, who was a huge pop culture icon in the 70s, and Charlie's Angels. She was very much this like sex symbol, idealized woman in popular culture. And obviously this ad features kind of this double entendre with the shaving cream and very much these sexual innuendos. And Farrah Fawcett is very much framed as this object of desire. And this can kind of play into the enjoyment of humor theory, the relief from being politically correct, because even someone watching this ad in a 2025 scenario, a 2025 context, if they feel like ads are too politically correct nowadays and they rather women be viewed in this way, they might find this ad humorous because it does position women as more of a sexual object of desire versus kind of a fully realized character within the ad. This ad's very much catered towards men. It's kind of showing you could be like the man in the ad, Joe Namath. If you use our product, you'll have this beautiful woman like Farrah Fawcett. She'll be attracted to you and she'll want to be with you. So it's definitely catered towards that male audience. And yeah, just very much reinforcing those gender stereotypes and showing that men's pleasure is what is prioritized over women's. This next ad is from 1992. It's with Cindy Crawford for Pepsi.
The previous one didn't play very well, so you might.
Is this one playing all right, or
Probably not.
hopefully this? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me maybe see if it's if it's not on full screen, if it would play.
New way to look at Pepsi and Diet Pepsi.
Hope that play all right, but
Better.
Okay, good. I'll just leave it out of full screen then. So similarly to the Farrah Fawcett ad, in looking at the pop culture context, Cindy Crawford was obviously this huge supermodel at the time, that kind of idealized woman figure like Farrah Fawcett. And while this ad uses the humor in a way of, oh, they're not actually looking at Cindy Crawford, they're looking at the Pepsi can, it still very much kind of gives off that same care towards a male audience feel, kind of positioning Cindy Crawford as this object of desire, even if they're trying to flip it on its head with the Pepsi can being actually what the boys care about. And again, with the pop culture context, using someone like Cindy Crawford, who is very much this kind of represents that ideal standard of beauty at the time, it definitely still positions women as a sexual object and object for desire. So while it does use humor in a different way than the Farrah Fawcett ad, we see a lot of those same stereotypes still permeate throughout this ad as well. this has a little bit different in tone. So this is from the year 2000. It's for ourbeginning.com bridal boutique. And I apologize, this one might be a little bit hard to see. This was the only link I could find on YouTube. It's a little bit smaller, so I hope that it's still easy to see, but
You said you had a large selection of invitations.
But we do.
Then why does she have my invitation?
What may be a little thing to some
You're mine, little man.
could be a really big deal to you. Is that your wife?
I'll watch for another 15 minutes.
After all, it's your special day. OurBeginning.com. Life's an event. Announce it to the world.
so this ad takes on a different stereotype for comedic effect. So this is very much looking at that sort of catfight, bridezilla that we still see today. That's definitely not a humor device that has gone away, but this uses the women fighting each other and degrading each other for its humor. Very much, their husbands are looking through the window and they're like, oh my God, look at our crazy wives fighting over something as stupid as a wedding dress, and kind of playing into that vanity aspect. So another piece of this that I found interesting was even the style of dresses that they're wearing and fighting over. It looks like they're almost in the 80s, like for a 2000 ad, and kind of it's very campy and over the top and exaggerated, which also plays into that humor. But definitely them positioning the men on the outside, looking in on the women, being very violent, and they're attacking the male shopkeeper. So it definitely frames women as being crazy and irrational, and they'll just fight each other over anything, over wanting to look beautiful on their wedding day, having the perfect dress and the perfect wedding. So yeah, definitely, while it's not employing the same sort of sexualization of objectification of women that we saw in the 90s ad and the 70s ad, it still is very much negative perceptions of women, and it still degrades women as part of the joke. I think the common theme throughout all three ads is the women, they're kind of laughing at women, not with women, and it's still kind of to cater towards that male audience. So you can see those similar themes throughout the three ads that were from 1973 to 2000. And the last ad that we would like to share with you is from the 2025 Super Bowl. This is called Your Attention Please, which this got a lot of discussion online and attention. So I'll just play some of that for you.
That you get lift, you get height, you get power. Really?
Let's start paying attention to breasts when it matters the most. Early detection for breast cancer is a game changer, and why I'm able to be here today. So let's get more women screened than ever before. Go to yourattentionplease.com and take the first step.
Yeah, so this ad was definitely very effective in grabbing people's attention, because at first, like many others and myself, like, what is this? What is this ad? Is it for clothing? Is it for lingerie? Like, what exactly is this ad trying to advertise? And then it completely kind of flips that on its head and turns into this PSA for women's healthcare and for breast cancer screenings. And this, I think, is a great example of how an ad can be humorous while also being kind of for women, instead of using women as kind of the butt of the joke, showing that historically there's been attention on women's bodies in the wrong way, as we saw with the Cindy Crawford ad and the Farrah Fawcett ad. It's, instead of using it for this sexual innuendos and that type of humor that's very degrading, this is showing that, humor can be used to bring attention to a really serious issue, and it could be used to empower women, kind of circling back to that femvertising. It's emphasizing that often these types of health issues, attention falls short and the attention should be there. And like I said, using humor in a very empowering way, which is contrasting a lot of the things we saw in the previous advertisements. And also just using Wanda Sykes as the spokesperson, who is a very famous female comedian, and use someone who is very influential in the comedy space, who is a woman, also, I think brings that point home. So overall, it's just a very effective, humorous ad that is for women and can still create a joke and also send an important message at the same time. Those things don't always need to be contrasting with one another. Yeah, just some concluding thoughts. Some of the similar things I said, that while the ads from 1973 and 2000, they range over almost a 30-year time period, a lot of their humor kind of banks on the same trope. So we're kind of still seeing from 1973, 1992, 2000, still seeing the same tropes used over and over and over again. There's not really like an evolution. And I think that can be a testament to, even though pop culture did evolve during those decades, there is still a lot of sexist humor that was being used in popular culture and that was deemed acceptable, and still very much trying to cater to that male audience. So that's what, in my opinion, makes that 2025 ad so great, is that it's kind of charting a new way for humorous advertisements about women and trying to dismantle some of the sexist humor that's been deemed acceptable in popular culture. And also emphasis on education and awareness and just subverting all of these stereotypes that have just become so tired and expected in these Super Bowl humorous advertisements. So I thank you all so much for your time and attention, and these are our sources that we used.
Excellent, interesting, presented well in time. Questions and comments? Joel.
No. Thank you. Super Bowl ads are really, really expensive. Tens of millions of dollars for a 30-second. And companies really have to work hard to get them right. Otherwise, they could completely misfire and they could lose a lot of business. So couldn't you say that a Super Bowl ad has to reinforce whatever stereotypes that the target audience has about whatever's in the ad? An example, for example, the Cindy Crawford ad. If you're the head of advertising or marketing for Pepsi, if you want to sell Pepsi, you have to reinforce whatever your audience feels about women, about rural life, about kids, about whatever's in the ad. So I guess what I'm saying is it necessarily a bad thing if you're running a company to reinforce stereotypes? An example of the misfire, of course, the obvious one is the Bud Light commercial, where Bud Light did not reinforce stereotypes that were held by its target audience, and I don't think Bud Light has ever recovered. It lost tens of millions of dollars worth of business. So what do you think? Is it always bad to reinforce stereotypes?
I think that's an interesting point, because I do think a lot of these ads are representative of the time and pop culture and what people found funny. So there is that line of, are we going to appease the majority of the audience while alienating others, or do we want to challenge stereotypes? Do we want to be the first people, while they are paying a lot of money and maybe a lot of companies don't want to take that risk, maybe if one company wants to challenge it at that time, that could create more people wanting to do the same and be like, maybe we can use this spot to do something different and try to put a different message out there. Because I think it comes down to if the company really does hold those beliefs and they do find that type of humor funny and they do want to reinforce those stereotypes, or maybe they don't support it, but they feel like we need to do this to appease that audience. And I guess which companies want to take the gamble in challenging kind of what culture is seeing as funny at that time, because I don't really think pop culture can evolve unless there's someone trying to challenge it and trying to make it different and challenge what people think is the right way of thinking, when it may be alienating an entire group of people who feel, you know, disrespected by that type of humor. So I think it's an interesting point, and I don't know, you know, what the right answer is, but I definitely think those ads almost exist in a vacuum of that era, and you could find a lot of different types of maybe sitcoms or other pieces of humor and maybe stand-up comedy that was reinforcing the exact same things those ads were reinforcing at that time.
Yeah, I just want to interject really quickly. Like 47% of the Super Bowl audience is women. So there is a motivation there not to offend. And so I think the NFL, National Football League also wants to rehab their image because of all the assault, you know, the domestic violence in football players. And so I think there's a motivation there. So good.
Sure. And it also depends on the target of the particular product that you're selling. If you're selling shaving cream, your buyer is going to be a man. And so you're probably going to be most concerned with, well, in the case of the Joe Namath ad, clearly they thought our target is men. And so the ad is going to reflect what men think about shaving cream or what they think about women back in the 1960s. So yeah, it's a very tricky marketing question. It's obviously you don't make decisions about what a commercial says, what an ad says in a vacuum. You have to think very hard about your target audience, and are you going to alienate another segment of your audience that is then going to backfire on you? And it's a very high risk decision. So it takes a lot for a big company to say, you know, we're going to try and change the attitude of the 50 million people who buy our product every day, and we're going to, because they have stockholders they have to report to, and if the stock price takes a dive and they start losing money, people get fired. So it's tricky. Thank you.
Definitely.
We still have more time for question comments on this panel presentation. And I am tempted to move on, but people may have actually waited for a specific paper in your panel. So we will need to wait a few more minutes.
All three in terms of you know, we talked about changing over time, and so I think you'll get a little piece of that in all the presentations. But yeah, definitely there's trends. It's become its own entertainment phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, specifically like things with what I see a lot is the kind of the evolution of Kids in the Hall, but also like the Judd Apatow type of humor. That wasn't so pervasive in the past, because you know you have to have a bit of you have to be very understanding of like popular culture to get a lot of the jokes. And it seems like maybe because of social media, because of multimodality now, the viewership are pulling off a lot of different knowledge resources for the humor. Whereas before it was like, you know, classic stand-up, set up, punchline, funny, move to the next one. And, you know, I don't know. Just wanted to, there was some dead air there and I wanted to fill it.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's one of these phenomenon where you don't necessarily have to be watching the Super Bowl. A lot of these ads are actually available before the Super Bowl even starts. They're certainly available afterwards. They actually want you to come online because that's free advertising. They don't have to pay for those extra spots because people can go to the website and watch them.
The so top 10 through YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah. They're getting the replays for free. So that $8 million for the initial 30-second spot kind of spreads out into more viewings as well.
I think what's also particularly interesting is to talk about misogyny, because with the new administration and the removing of end racism, with the definite shift that's going on towards DEI, women's issues and stuff like, in other issues like that, it all plays out so in the circus here. So again, the Super Bowl is definitely a fascinating arena to see these culture war points playing out. That makes any sense.
Taylor Swift effect in terms of she's brought, I don't know how many millions of viewers, and little girls are watching with their dads, and but then of course there's a backlash. She got booed by, and this part of the booing is the Philadelphia crowd. I mean, Philadelphia crowd threw snowballs at Santa Claus. Like they're not a super friendly group, and so I don't know how much of it was booing Taylor Swift herself, or the fact that she grew up in Pennsylvania and now she's cheering for the Chiefs. So there's a lot of elements that go on in the background as well.
I mean, if Amy Friedman was here, she could talk all about Philadelphia. But we know how you're absolutely right about Philly crowds. I mean, there's that famous Bill Burr when he goes on the rant to the Philadelphia crowd, takes them to task on that. So, and they loved it though. They loved being roasted. It's like, you have to roll your sleeves up.
Okay, thanks. Thanks again to Mia and her co-authors, B and Janiki.